Hi, everyone, and welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. We have a segment queued up from 1986, a big year for the film industry. That's when the Pixar animation studio first launched. Tom Cruise was fawned over as Maverick with the debut of Top Gun, and James Cameron released one of the top sci-fi films of all time, Aliens. Now, what was being discussed in Ontario's Parliament was far from science fiction. Let's take a listen.
Oral questions. The member for St. George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the absence of the Premier and in the absence of the Minister responsible for women's issues, I will direct my question to the Government House Leader. We note that we have once again been treated to a full and complete report in the news media of government intentions on policy prior to a time that there has been a statement or anything tabled in this House. So my question, Mr. Speaker, to the Government House Leader is whether the House Leader can confirm that it is in fact the government's intention to bring in a purported pay equity bill for the private sector that will have the effect of eliminating from pay equity some 68% of all of the private firms in this province, and because of a gender predominance requirement, will remove from the protection of pay equity those women in the social sciences where it is only 52% women, those in teaching where it is 59% women, those in sales where it is 40% women,
Treasurer.
those in recreational occupations where it is 39%,
Order.
and others where it is 42%.
Treasurer.
The honourable member will know that the pay equity bill for the public sector is presently being considered in committee, and the Attorney General, the Minister responsible for women's issues, has said, I believe in the House, certainly publicly, that he hopes to introduce a bill for the private sector before the end of the calendar year. My own hope is that it will come in November. Whether or not the House chooses to proceed with putting both bills in committee or how they want to deal with them is, of course, to be decided by the government and by the House itself. And I can assure the honourable member who has asked the question that when the bill is made public, she will see that it treats women in a fair and equitable manner, most progressive manner indeed, and that we hope that when the bill is introduced, it will receive the support on all sides.
Are you in favor of
Supplementary, the member for Brantford.
By way of supplementary, does the Government House Leader not see that if this leaked report is accurate, in fact, your government is making a farce not only of its election promise, you're making a farce of the work that's being done in the Justice Committee? Will the Minister not agree that with this leaked report, it's clear that you are going to put the broad public sector into a toothless bill which will not take effect until the 1990s? And will the Minister confirm now that it's obvious your strategy is that once the opposition parties have finished amending Bill 105, that you'll withdraw it?
Mr. Speaker, I think the honourable member is referring to the Goldstein column in The Sun, and I am not in a position to say how accurate it is. I know he's a very good reporter and would not knowingly put forward anything that was in any way misrepresentative, but I'm not in a position to say whether it accurately reflects the provisions of the bill. I do know that the bill is being worked on by a number of ministers and a number of people in at least two ministries. That from time to time it'll be reviewed by cabinet committees. The honourable member from his own experience knows that's true, that we're not close to introducing it as yet, and I'm sure the honourable member will find when it does receive the approval of cabinet and the caucus of my colleagues and is introduced for his consideration, that it will represent fairness, justice and equity as I've already indicated.
Final supplementary, the member for St. George.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker, I find it incredible that the Government House Leader is unable to confirm the reportage in The Sun, because we were able to confirm it with very little problem, and in fact find ourselves now in receipt of a copy that we believe must have formed the basis of the article. And the copy will show, and I ask the the Government House Leader to confirm that the format that would provide and require for comparisons to occur only within one establishment will mean that child care workers and health care workers, predominantly 92% and 98% respectively women, will be totally excluded from this sham that the government intends to introduce.
Mr. Speaker, I hate to see the honourable member work herself up into such a frenzy of outrage over some report in the morning press. She may have also received a copy of a document from some source, but I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, that the honourable member, who has had extensive experience in the ministry herself, must be aware that the legislation is not nearly ready for presentation. I would expect that it wouldn't be put into the House for at least a month or perhaps 2 months. And the legislation is not correct, and it is not ready for presentation, not nearly ready. And it is being reviewed by the Minister for Labour and others, and these matters will result in legislation that we'll be honoured and delighted to present to the House when we're ready.
New question, the member for Nipissing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Trade. Now that we have our first casualty for the softwood lumber fiasco in the decision handed down last week, story today in the Thunder Bay Chronicle states that Northern Wood Preserves and Great West Timber will be laying off 100 workers on November 3rd unless their U.S. customers absorb the 15% increase. You know this will be devastating to the region. You know this is a region that has been hit by massive layoffs and a general economic slowdown already. It was your ineptness and mismanagement that caused this ridiculous ruling. What are you going to do now to assist the 100 workers in Thunder Bay of Northern Wood Preserves and Great West Timber?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the member is aware, the layoffs have indeed resulted because of the 15% survey tax that was put on it. And of course, as we have stated in the House over the last couple of days, we will work very closely with both the federal government, the other provinces, and the industry to push this case ahead as quickly as we can and to see that we win it.
Supplementary.
You'll do nothing for the 100 workers. There are other protectionist measures being considered by the U.S. at this time, which surely you should know will have severe repercussions on industry in Ontario. The Premier showed his lack of knowledge on these issues when he was asked a question on Tuesday about the Hines-Murtha bill. For your information, so you can rest a little easier for a day, it's died on the order paper for now. That's the status of the bill. The bill proposes to place quotas on steel imports, limit Canada to 2.4% of the U.S. market. Canada currently has 3.3%, so it's about a 50%, a 33rd and a third percent reduction of that market. You know that will cost hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. You know it will result in significant job losses in Sault Ste. Marie and Hamilton. We know the Premier didn't even know about it. What action have you taken to try and prevent this bill from becoming law?
Minister.
First, on a
Order. We'll just wait. We'll just wait. If you want to waste many of the members' time, that's fine with me. I'll wait. Order. Response, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First, to clear up a little point for the member and also for the Leader of the Opposition, it is not the Hines-Murtha bill. Those are two separate bills. Senator Hines introduced one of the bills in the Senate, and the other was introduced by Mr. Murtha in the House of Representatives. So it's not one bill. There are two bills. They did indeed die on the order paper, and we feel that Ontario, especially Ontario, is a very fair trader in the steel industry, and it will not affect the steel industry, we hope.
Final supplementary.
It's the two of them together, working together, joint activity. activity. If you understood how things work in the States, you'd know that that's the way you put forward that bill into the two houses. You still don't seem to understand how things operate in the States when they affect.
Question.
The U.S. has placed a law that will place new standards for licensing commercial bus and truck drivers. Canadian firms which haul goods to the U.S., there are more than 600 to be affected by the changes, as the cost of putting drivers through new licensing procedures, which you know or should know will be costly and complicated. Kenneth McLaren, the Executive Director of the Canadian Trucking Association, has said this move will probably spell the end for a number of Canadian operators. I'd like to know, A, if you were aware, B, if you were aware, what action was taken by you
Minister.
to prevent these changes from impacting in this way on Ontario's turn?
Mr. Speaker, that is just one in a series of several things that have been of great concern to this government and all members of the House. Not only the steel that you talk about, not only the licensing, not only the lumber, but also the surtax. There has been a lot of activity in the States because of the elections coming up. A lot of these bills have died on the order paper, and we hope that the United States and the people of the House of Representatives and the Senate have good sense and will not reintroduce those bills.
New question, the member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, I had wanted to ask the Premier some questions about his really ridiculous remark.
Order. Is there anything wrong with the member for Nipissing or Brantford? No? Okay. New question, the member for York South.
I had wanted to ask the Premier personally some questions about the level of care that's being provided to our senior citizens in nursing homes, and his comment yesterday that older people need less food than other people, which he apparently made in the scrum outside the legislature in response to certain questions. I'd like to ask the Minister of Health, given the fact that even in the municipally run homes for the aged in metropolitan Toronto, given the fact that these homes spend upwards of $3.85 per day per resident, and that's moving to $4 in January, I'd like to ask the Minister, is it the official position of the government, or indeed is it the position of any member of the government, that somehow older people who live in nursing homes need less food than older people who are living in homes for the aged?
Minister.
Speaker, I think that one of the things that the honourable gentleman would want to do, and we are doing this now, is to compare, in fact, what the numbers which are being quoted represent in terms of cost to the facilities. It seems to me, Mr. Speaker, that we must be aware of whether one number is representative of the total complement of services rolled into the expense of providing service. And I am looking into those comparative numbers, Mr. Speaker, so that I can advise people more fully later on. For instance, as was pointed out in some of the articles, and I presume that the honourable member has in his hand today a copy of the article which appeared in one of the local newspapers. It indicated, for instance, in some facilities, special diets are ordered and received and obviously add to the cost of service that is provided for individuals who are in those institutions, particularly when it comes to hospitals. It seems to me, Mr. Speaker, that we need to examine the components of each of those numbers as quoted, and we will do that. I can tell the honourable member that no matter what has been said, that all of us on this side of the House, as I'm sure all of us here in this House are, committed to ensuring that there is good quality of care in our institutions for seniors, and in fact not only for seniors but for all people who are in fact in our institutions.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, let the record show that in response to this report, two things happened. The Minister of Health suppressed it for 6 months and did nothing about any of its major recommendations. Not a thing. And the second thing is that the Premier went outside this House and made a fatuous remark about the needs of older people and the kind of food they ought to be able to eat in an institution in the province of Ontario. Those are two things that this government has done, and now the Minister stands up and justifies what his own complaints committee says cannot be justified. I'd like to ask the minister, are you aware that the Crittenden report says, and I quote, "The most frequent type of complaints received during our informal visits were concerned with meals. Repeatedly, residents complained that food is unappetizing, served poorly and cold, and presented in an unfriendly, hurried way. Indeed, the committee agrees mealtime in nursing homes leaves much to be desired, yet according to many residents, mealtime is the highlight of the day." It then goes on to document the dollar figures and says, nobody, no matter how much bulk buying you can do, can possibly feed people adequately on $2.10 a day. Given that fact, why did you suppress this report for 6 months?
Mr. Speaker, I didn't suppress the report for 6 months, and I must tell the individual that he knows that when he quotes $2.10, Mr. Speaker, that was one facility about which that committee reported. And I understand that, Mr. Speaker, that there was an interview of one of the members of that committee, apparently in the newspaper today, who had reported that they were happy to report that there was a good quality of service in the homes. I can tell the honourable members, Mr. Speaker, lest there is some concern that we do not monitor and take into consideration the types of menus that are provided and the nutrition that is provided, that each home does have a nutritionist, that we do inspect and take a look at the food that is served. That does not mean, Mr. Speaker, that there are not variations from standards, and we look at those very quickly. And I can tell the honourable member that I would be very interested in the examples which he would like to provide for me so that we can check up into the system. That is the way in which our system performs at this time. We check and we look at the complaints that are received. This particular report was of use to us, is useful for all of us, and I think it highlights for many of us the need to examine the manner in which our system operates so that we can make it better.
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, if the report was so useful, why did you keep it a secret for 6 months? If the report was so useful to the province of Ontario, why did you keep it a secret? Why did you suppress it within your own ministry? Why didn't you make it public? And if there's so much good is going on, why would even this committee, appointed by the Conservatives, have made 9 specific recommendations, even with respect to meals, which your ministry has not acted on? I'd like specifically to ask the minister, though, since the Premier has made the fatuous and really quite disgraceful comment that the dietary needs of older people are somehow less than those of other people in our society, which I think most people in this House would reject completely and utterly as a comment to be made about the needs of older people, I'd like to ask the minister, one of the key recommendations of the report, which he will be aware of, is that developmentally handicapped people should not be kept in private nursing homes. There are over 2,000 who still are. They are very critical of the programs that are there and say that this group is not receiving the same stimulation and programming in a nursing home that they should be receiving. I'd like to ask the minister specifically, what do you intend to do about the needs of the developmentally handicapped that are still in private nursing homes? Are you going to do anything for them? And is it the position of the government that developmentally handicapped people have less dietary needs than other?
Order. 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 Minister?
Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that honourable gentleman likes to ask the questions and then answer them for himself, attributing to me statements that were not made. I didn't condone $2.10. I don't condone any particular number. Mr. Speaker, this gentleman never heard me say that. I can tell, Mr. Speaker, that we are concerned when reports like this indicate that there is a low level of support for the people in homes. That's what the essence of that report is. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that we are concerned that the quality of life in these homes be elevated. With respect to the primary part of his supplementary question, it has been a concern for as long as I've been here, and it even predated our move into our role as government. The fact that there are developmentally handicapped people in the nursing home system, and I can tell you that my colleague and I, the Honourable John Sweeney, have been meeting considerably often to make moves which will, in fact, do a great deal to improve the programming which is provided for those individuals. I recognize, as everybody does, that these people need better programming. and we are committed to ensuring that better programming be provided for those people who now find themselves in those facilities.
New question. The member for York South.
In the absence of the Attorney General, I'd like to ask a question to the Treasurer. I wonder, this has to do with the question of equal pay, just so you can focus. I'd like to ask the Treasurer if he can explain the congruence, the overlap, if you will, between the recommendation of the National Citizens Coalition on May the 15th, 1986, who recommended that the Ontario government announce a 5-year moratorium on the implementation of pay discrimination in Ontario's private sector. The bizarre congruence and overlap between that and the report of the cabinet document that we saw in today's Toronto Sun, which indicated that the private sector would not be expected to comply by law or by means of any kind of enforcement mechanism until the beginning of the 1990s.
Minister?
Should not confuse what he receives in a brown envelope or even what he reads in the Toronto Sun with government policy. That the matter is well, that's a different matter. That's a different matter. But I can assure the honourable member that the policy has been under constant review ever since we first envisaged the concept of pay equity many years ago. That we have been developing this, as the honourable member would know, and we think that our policy will be as good or better than in any jurisdiction that has moved in the pay equity field. We are not ready to present it to the House, and we have not indicated that we would for another month. I can assure you that a good deal of work is going forward, and we hope that the honourable member will greet the bill with enthusiasm when it's introduced.
Supplementary.
I don't think I heard an answer to my question, Mr. Speaker. The Treasurer is adamantly defending a bill which he apparently has seen, and he's then told us, don't believe press reports. All we can say is, Treasurer, until you give us a bill, we are simply going to deal with the documents that are before us and are in front of us, whether they're in the press or come by way of brown paper envelope, and you're going to be expected to answer for that because you're not giving us the legislation. In fact, you are obstructing the introduction of legislation into the House. You're preventing it from coming forward. You're making it impossible for us even to be able to debate it. I wonder if the Treasurer can explain, again, if he can't explain the overlap between the policy of the Liberal cabinet and the policy of the National Citizens Coalition,
Both from London.
which we have an increasingly ease with explaining and understanding that overlap. We observed it for the last 42 years, and now it would appear the Liberals are following into the same pattern. I'd like to ask
Please do.
Can he explain the overlap between the statement of the Canadian Manufacturers Association Ontario Division, March of 1986, which said there should be a minimum 4-year phase-in period before complaints would be allowed. I wonder, can the Treasurer explain that peculiar overlap? Why were the demands of countless women's groups across this province turned off and denied, and the demands of the Canadian manufacturers...
Order.
Ever agreeing with the National Citizens Coalition, but there may have been some instances when I did personally. I think the fact that the honourable leader of the third party sees some overlap is mostly a function of him having too many researchers around reading old documents rather than of any significance.
Final supplementary, the member for Ottawa Centre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the Treasurer if we're to understand from what he's saying and what we've read that his concept of equity in this question is that it's fair and it's just when 50% of women are covered and the other 50% aren't.
Treasurer?
Really, to go back, I guess, just to an indication in the previous question, I don't really believe that a bill in draft form exists. It may. I know that many research papers and proposals are available, and I really don't know what has been conveyed to the honourable member and her colleagues and to the reporters around town. I mean, I think that's significant, but I'm not going to comment on that, other than to say that intensive and effective work is going forward in the preparation of world-class legislation, which the honourable member will be delighted to support, I'm sure.
New question. The member for St. George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question for the Minister of Transportation and Communications. Minister, I wonder if you would detail for this House what security precautions your ministry has in place to protect the privacy of information collected on the automobile owners of this province.
Minister.
As you're aware, there are certain agencies, insurance companies, lawyers, and certain times private citizens can obtain, under the legislation, can obtain certain pieces of information, certainly not the kind of information that was alleged in the House yesterday. As I mentioned yesterday, perhaps outside of the House, because of that incident, we are going to take a look at whether or not that existing legislation needs to be tightened up so that it is not used in any frivolous way or any harmful way.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to bring to the Minister's attention the fact that this morning we gave your ministry 2 plate numbers and $5, and for the time it took to fill in a form this long, received extensive information on the names and addresses of single women in Toronto. I want to tell the Minister that at no time were we asked why we wanted this information, and at no time were we asked for any identification of ourselves. I'm extremely alarmed by the potential abuse of such availability of information. I ask the Minister whether he will today instruct that such information not be available under those circumstances.
Minister.
I would certainly share the member's concern for any abuse or misuse of any of that kind of information. We've stated that it is now available, and it's available under the legislation that your government passed. I stated yesterday, and I've stated again here today, that I am directing my staff to take a look at how that may be or should be tightened up.
You ever bring that to the front? New question. The member for Riverdale.
Mr. Speaker,
Is it too much to ask to allow other members to ask questions? That's fair? Good. The member for Riverdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the absence of the Minister of the Environment and the Premier, I'll direct my question to the Treasurer of Ontario. Yesterday, the Ministry of the Environment finally released the results of the soil testing in South Riverdale. And, Mr. Speaker, those results are absolutely devastating. 93% of the properties tested show lead contamination that is a danger to the lives of our citizens. Will the Treasurer now commit funds to replace the soil and start protecting the health of our children in South Riverdale?
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, if I may just bring the attention of the members that the Honourable Minister of the Environment is in St. Catharines attending the funeral of Mr. Welch Sr., the father of Bob Welch. I know that we extend our sympathy to the Welch family, but the Honourable Minister indicated by just a note when he was leaving that a question of this important nature might be raised. I really feel that it would be more appropriate if he answered himself. He simply wanted me to convey to the House that he was concerned about the report and looking into it very carefully. The specific question deals with my responsibility in providing funds, and the Honourable Member would know that the Treasury, with the concurrence of the members of the Cabinet, have provided funds for a number of environmental programs and initiatives, and we've done so with enthusiasm, alacrity, and generosity.
Mr. Speaker, there may be some question about the alacrity. And may I remind the House that the elder statesman from Brant, Oxford, Norfolk, 6 days short of 13 years ago in this very chamber, when he was Leader of the Opposition, joined with my predecessor, the late Jim Renwick, in climbing all over the government of the day on the matter of lead in South Riverdale. Is our Treasurer... Mr. Speaker,
Order.
this is the question.
Order, there's a question coming. There's a supplementary coming.
Mr. Speaker, is the Treasurer prepared to say to the House and to Mrs. Maureen MacDonald, who is here in the gallery, who has 3 children, who lives in South Riverdale, that the Minister of the Environment is looking at it?
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I know the honourable member, being a reasonable man, would not expect me to make a commitment on the basis of my knowledge of the matter as it is presently put forward in the most recent report. I've indicated to you that the minister has conveyed to me his concern and the active attention of his ministry, and in direct response to the honourable member's question to the Treasurer, that appropriate financing will be made available for all of these approved environmental operations.
New question, the member for Yorkview.
Of Revenue again. As the Minister is aware, assessment values in the municipality of Metropolitan Toronto have remained unchanged for at least 40 years. This has resulted in grave inequities in the collection of property taxes, where thousands of Metro Toronto homeowners are paying much more than their fair share. Given that the previous government did not have the political will to correct these inequities, will the Treasurer and the Minister of Revenue please advise us as to what his position is on the issue?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the political will when it comes to reassessment is variable, and that's recognizable. I think the honourable member would be interested to know, and I think he's aware that the Ministry of Revenue prepared a report on market value assessment and reassessment under the chairmanship of Herb Epp, my colleague, who is not in the House today, and that this gave some leadership to the cities of metropolitan Toronto to consider whether or not they wanted to proceed with metro-wide reassessment or some other variation. That they gave this very careful consideration, in spite of threats from irresponsible oppositionists that market value reassessment would lead to blood in the gutters. I think that's the exact phrase. Still, it was given serious consideration, and I regret, Mr. Speaker, to inform you in the House of something they already know, and that is the Metropolitan Council decided not to proceed. They did undertake, the honourable member would know, to review that original decision. That review is coming forward in the next few days, but the Executive Committee, I believe, has decided that if it's going to be done, it must be done at the initiative of the provincial government. We undoubtedly have the right to bring a bill before the legislature empowering reassessment on a metro-wide basis to take place. I do not intend to avail myself of that power at this time because I feel the responsibility lies with the cities and the Metropolitan Council.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the 1980 report on the impact of market value assessment released by our government shortly after taking office last year shows that over 80% of the homeowners in my riding would receive a tax reduction. Some single-family homes worth $100,000 in my riding are paying as much in property taxes as some properties worth $400,000 in the Yonge and Sheppard area. It appears, Mr. Speaker, that Metro Council, while recognizing the need for market value reassessment, is abdicating their responsibility in this regard. Mr. Speaker, knowing the Minister's concern for fair taxation in this province, can he assure this House today that at some point within the foreseeable future, that tax reform will occur in this municipality?
Minister.
The answer, of course, is yes, it will eventually occur. I would also like to say that the honourable members and you, Mr. Speaker, would know that many scores of municipalities, recognizing that inadequate assessment is leading to unfair taxation, have requested assessment under Section 63, reassessment under Section 63. As a matter of fact, all the municipalities in Brant County did this over the past year. I had the honor as Minister of Revenue to approve that reassessment, and there were certain dislocations, pressures, and tensions resulting from that I'm glad to inform you, sir, and the honourable members tend to be subsiding. but some fairly major municipalities, some very large cities, have gone forward with reassessment. I think Mississauga is the largest. This was not a simple decision to be made by the mayor and council, and the reassessment there presented some difficulties. But once again, I believe it was the right thing to do. It was the politically courageous thing to do, and it was properly done at the behest of the locally elected council. My own advice to the councils of the cities of metropolitan Toronto is that they recognize their responsibilities and request the reassessment, which we would be glad to proceed with as soon as we possibly could.
New question. The member for Simcoe Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have a question to the Minister of Tourism and Recreation and Fast Sales. Mr. Minister, concerning the supposed sale of Monackey Lodge, it's beginning to look like another UTDC mismanaged deal. Yeah. Can the Minister tell this House why today you would announce a sale in principle of a Crown-owned resort before any agreement is signed, and in announcing the sale, talk about all the funds Monackey will require in the future to maintain it? Can you tell this House why you do that?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, today this is a progress report, and this is the place, the Assembly. It's in this Assembly that we should report on such agencies as Monackey Lodge. And I want to tell you that you people have a very short memory, because when you announced Deerhurst, you went up into Muskoka. You didn't announce it in this House, and that's why we're announcing it here today.
That's the poorest business management ever. Absolutely. There's nobody who do that in business. Nobody.
Well, I'm listening very carefully. It's very constructive. Order. 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 Supplementary, the member for Simcoe Centre.
Speaker, we in this side of the House don't apologize for keeping people employed in northwestern Ontario and a huge tourist investment, the best in the world. Can you tell this House, since you're in charge of this, announcing this deal, how much the Ontario taxpayer will receive for Monackey, and what studies has your government done to establish the market price for Monackey? Or have you simply jumped the gun again and stand to blow another deal?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what I'm announcing today is an agreement in principle, and as I mentioned to you, that the full details will be released in the House, not outside of this House. And I want to say to you, I want to say to the honourable member that your leader goes up into Northern Ontario, talks about Monackey Lodge, and then comes down into the Toronto area and says it's going to hurt him. He has two stories on that. We have one. We'll make our decisions right here in the House. You bet.
New question. The member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Premier and the Minister of Northern Affairs, I have a question for the Minister of Natural Resources. It concerns a petition which I have received, which has been signed by over 1,400 people who live in Smooth Rock Falls, Moonbeam, and Fauquier. They are all employees of the mill in Smooth Rock Falls, and they have some very specific questions for the government, which the government has been unable to answer. My initial question to the Minister of Natural Resources is this. Can he tell us, since the deal to sell the mill from Abitibi Price to Millette took place at the end of August, why has it been impossible for the Minister of Northern Affairs to even meet with the workers and talk about their concerns relating to the shutdown of that mill? Why has it been impossible to arrange that kind of a meeting? And why are you yourself declining to meet directly with the employees, as I understand it, according to the information they've received, with the employees in Millette Wafer Board Corporation to discuss the deal that is going ahead as of December the 1st?
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to respond to the Leader of the third party that I am prepared to meet at any time with the workers at Smooth Rock Falls. I can tell you honestly that I have not been asked if there has been some problem in communications. I'm very much prepared to meet with them at any time we can arrange such a meeting.
Supplementary, the member for Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, that's a very strange response given the fact that the minister's deputy only this morning refused to have the minister meet with the Canadian Paper Workers Union over this dispute. Further, the minister surely knows that the Premier on September 22nd told the union that no deal would be signed, no cutting rights would be transferred until this minister had thoroughly investigated the whole question, because there's a very real concern that the mill will be shut down. The pulp mill will be shut down. The stud mill's it's already been told that they've shut down. Will the minister guarantee us that the cutting limits will be tied to the pulp mill and the stud mill in Smooth Rock Falls so that there is a guarantee of some kind of economic future for Smooth Rock Falls?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not prepared to accept that I was asked to meet with these gentlemen, but I would make the comment and the promise here and now that I would meet with them on very short notice and go into the questions that you raised with me and be very much prepared to meet as quickly as we can.
New question, the member for York East.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Colleges and Universities. Mr. Speaker, I have recently been speaking with the members of the students and faculty and staff of Centennial College, which is in my riding of York East, and they are interested in knowing what has happened to the Pittman report of last June, and what actions does the minister propose to take in relation to the Pittman report?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that my colleague from York East should ask that question. It gives me an opportunity to respond to the very same question that my friend from Scarborough-Ellesmere will be asking me in a few short minutes in estimates. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you are aware that Walter Pittman submitted a report to me on governance within the community colleges. I think it was towards the end of July, and I invited the entire community, including staff, students, faculty, presidents, boards of governors, to respond by October the 15th. By September the 30th. We have all those responses now, and we are proceeding towards articulating our final determinations as to what changes we're going to make in governance. I simply would advise the member, through you, Mr. Speaker, that we are not going to proceed on Mr. Pittman's advice with respect to the Council of Regents. He suggested the disbandment of the Council of Regents and the creation of 3 separate advisory bodies. However, Mr. Speaker, he did give some very sound advice with respect to internal representation on college boards from within the community of the colleges, and we are proceeding to follow up how we can implement those recommendations in practice.
Supplementary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the Centennial College community is particularly interested in seeing broader representation on the Board of Governors of the college, perhaps using the university model. And my question to the Minister is, do you propose to make any changes in this regard?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you probably heard the comments of the member from Scarborough-Ellesmere, as if somehow that party has a monopoly on democracy. The answer is, well, I mean, that's your approach, David. The answer is that we are going to be making changes. I can't tell my friend from York East yet exactly how we are going to structure internal representation on boards of governors, David, but we are going to be proceeding in a direction that I think not only those who have a monopoly on democracy across the House, but everyone in this House will be glad to see.
Point of order.
Yes. I think it's an important point of order.
Point of order. What could be?
Well, Mr. Speaker,
try me for a point of order.
Can I try it?
No.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Order. I don't know if it's a point of order until I hear what.
Mr. Rye has agreed to meet with the workers at 4:30, and I should be at the meeting.
Order.
I think it's important.
Order. That's not a point of order. That's a point of information. No question. The member for Kenora.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Natural Resources.
He's not listening.
I want to repeat that. I have a question for the Minister of Natural Resources. You got that? Okay. Can the minister tell this House how he rationalized the unprecedented giveaway of the 5 Fathom and Cypress Lake provincial parks on the Bruce Peninsula, an area totaling some 17,000 acres of land, plus the facilities, the total estimated value at $8.5 million. For this, we're told the province will get a national park which will eliminate hunting, trapping, and fish management within its borders. How could you rationalize this giveaway, Mr. Minister?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I can rationalize it in a way that it's going to please many hundreds of people in the future. We all know that it's just with wonderment that we think in terms of the people that years ago set aside very important national parks for the people of Canada to enjoy. We are participating now in the Bruce Peninsula in such a park within the bounds of Ontario, and while the honourable member makes a reasonable point about the hunting and fishing, we rationalize that by taking away some of the areas that were to be included in the original size of the park so that the historical uses in some of those areas would continue. But I think in the overall picture that to have a national park in the Bruce Peninsula is one that's been accepted by the municipalities and people of the area to a great degree.
Right on.
Supplementary.
Speaker, that's a very, very weak response, I must say. But I want to ask the minister in this unprecedented giveaway, was the minister aware of the fact that the former Minister of Natural Resources, Alan Pope, had undertaken negotiations with the federal government and had demanded a fair market value for those lands and the retention of hunting and trapping within its boundaries? And why has the minister sold out all the hunters, he sold out all the trappers and the fishermen in the Bruce Peninsula when even his senior staff recommended that hunting should be retained in that area?
Mr. Speaker, the fact that a former minister dug his heels in is the reason that we were not going to have a national park there. And now we are. And I'm very pleased to stand in my place here and tell the people of Ontario that we have a new national park at the Bruce Peninsula and that many years hence there are going to be many thousands of future generations enjoy that park.
Here, here. Good answer.
No, we'll just wait. Order. We'll just wait. I'd like to have as many members as possible ask questions. Well, the member for Scarborough West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appreciate you getting a little silence before I get up. It'll disappear in no time, I'm sure. My question's for the Treasurer. Today, the Metropolitan Toronto Social Planning Council issued this document called Living on the Margin, another analysis of poverty in Ontario. I want to ask you some questions, if I might, around the question of the working poor in the province of Ontario and what programs you may have to provide. They indicate on page 114 of their document that for many families that are working poor in the province at the moment, you need to make at least $8 an hour to be able to get by in places like Metropolitan Toronto. Does the government have plans for introducing work supplement plans like those in Quebec or the supplement plans in Saskatchewan and elsewhere to assist the working poor who are being excessively hard hit presently in the province of Ontario?
Treasurer.
The Minister of Community and Social Services is participating in our discussions for the allocation preceding next year's budget. Also, there are associated additional expenditures such as improvements in payments that normally are announced before the beginning of the calendar year that are also being discussed. You should really direct the question to the honourable member when he is here, because I think he could give a much more appropriate answer than I. I can simply give you an assurance that won't put much bread on the table, nor, I suspect, give you much satisfaction by simply saying that the government is as supportive as we possibly can be for progressive and useful programs that is going to relieve the difficulties of poverty in this city and across the province.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the reason I went to the Treasurer is that there's some feeling out there that there's a fair amount of money that's going to be required to bring the system up to date, and that you are the final arbitrator of that over there, and that it's therefore important to find out where you stand on these matters as well, even if the minister were here presently. Today I got a call, sir, from my constituent. It just happened to be a coincidence. A woman who works for an electrical firm and earns around just under $13,000 a year. And she's complaining to me that even though her rent doesn't seem excessive, at $460 a month, which is just going up to, she doesn't feel that she's going to be capable of maintaining that rent, which is around 54% of her net income. And she had put her name on an application for Ontario Housing 3 years ago, told it would take 3 years to get on, has now been told as of this morning that she was taken off the list, and a person in her category will take at least 5 years to get assisted housing in the province of Ontario. Will you have plans in place to assist people with the enormous housing costs that they have, which are eating into their budgets so extremely, especially single parents like she is?
Speaker, the only answer I can give the honourable member is that the Minister of Community and Social Affairs has really put to me and our colleagues very strong indications of growing needs in the metropolitan areas here and elsewhere in the province in this connection, that we're subject to many demands. The honourable member refers to me as the final arbiter in these matters. If that's so, I certainly feel under a good deal of tension and pressure in all ways, and really it is a joint decision made by the members of the Cabinet as to how the financial pie is going to be distributed. I just simply say again of the concern that the Minister and all of us as his colleagues feel in this regard, and I hope that our decisions are going to improve the situation.
New question, the member for Carleton Grenville.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question of the Minister of Energy, who I just noticed ducked out.
He knew it. He knew it was coming.
Perhaps there might be someone else that would have a question to another minister. I don't see that minister here.
Well, I'll direct
the member for Mississauga.
I'll direct.
Sorry?
I'll bow to the member for Mississauga.
The member for Mississauga South.
My minister also has ducked out. I guess the news has got through.
Where are they?
It's the Minister of Citizenship and Culture.
Phil, you're running over there.
How many ministers in this side are away?
Does the member for Carleton Grenville wish to direct a question to another minister?
I'll ask the Treasurer this question. There have been a number of recent studies, Mr. Minister, dealing with health effects from high-power tension lines in the United States in particular. And there have been some recent studies done in Canada, most recent one done by the National Cancer Institute of Canada, Toronto, showing that electrical workers died of leukemia at more than twice the expected rate. There are a number of reports from a number of studies which can't explain that people who are exposed to elevated magnetic fields are more subject to cancers than people who are not. Now, even an official in the Ontario Hydro, John O'Grady, was recently quoted in the Ottawa Citizen as saying, now that's not to say there is no risk, but it hasn't been established to date. The New York State Health Department has commissioned $5 billion worth of studies on this particular matter. What is your government doing to attack and address this concern of many people who are exposed to high-tension wires?
I'd like to direct the question to the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Minister?
Yes, thank you very much. It's a very important question. It's one that has been studied in a great many jurisdictions. They've studied this impact on people working in and around and living in and around high-tension wires, where the induced currents from high voltage traveling through the lines would set up a current or field of energy beyond the lines itself. But of all the studies to this point in time, there are now no real indications except for the cathodic action that's picked up in pipes and that in the ground that it has any effect on human beings or animals. I would say that as time goes on and people become interested and we see studies that would cause us to re-examine the situation, we'd be very prepared to do that.
Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the people of the community of Bridlewood in the city of Canada, who are having to accept, because of a joint board hearing, a twin tower which brings the main power line from Lennox to Ottawa, are not convinced by the assurances of Ontario Hydro. Last Monday night, 150 concerned parents and citizens were not alleviated by Ontario Hydro's assurance that the new two towers, the dual towers, bringing these new lines, would not be any more dangerous than the existing towers. I believe, Mr. Minister, that there is mounting evidence that there are ill effects in this area. Would you consider asking your cabinet colleagues to reconsider the route selection through the city of Canada so that you might skirt this particular community and not expose these people to high power tension lines?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've been discussing this very issue in this very particular spot with the Minister of Municipal Affairs because he had brought it to my attention. What I'd like to say is that everyone here is aware of the fact that the hearings that are undertaken by Ontario Hydro for transmission lines are such that anyone or any group of people that have a concern about these various situations can put their feelings to those hearing boards. I can't believe that they wouldn't make that case when the route was being determined. But certainly, I'll take into account your question and talk with our people at Ontario Hydro and see if there's any new evidence that there is that concern.
New question, the member for Hamilton East.
In the absence of the Minister of Health, I'd like to ask a question of the Treasurer of the Province of Ontario. The Treasurer, as many years in this House, will be well aware of the long fight for an East End medical facility in the city of Hamilton, now more commonly referred to it as the St. Joseph's Ambulatory Care Unit. The previous government, some 2 years ago, made a commitment of some $10 million as the government share towards the construction of this facility, which has taken 15 years to work through the process. I'm wondering if the Treasurer can tell us if that commitment still stands with this present government for the East End Medical Facility in the city of Hamilton.
I can't answer that definitively because I know that there are a number of programs that the previous government was interested in funding that we would like to fund as well, but I'm not sure whether that is specifically one that is going forward. I do recall the situation because the community has been advocating that very powerfully for many years, and I sincerely hope that funding can be found to promote it. I think the honourable member will be aware that the budget last May included $850 million over a period of 3 to 8 years. That is, the construction would have to be completed by that time. That will be by no means the limit on capital commitments, but whether or not the honourable minister has included that in the list, I really don't know.
Supplementary?
Well, the supplementary, I think the community is working on the assumption that it is, but there has never been any formal recommitment of the $10 million. I do know that the total plans for the unit have been in the minister's office for a good many weeks. And I'm wondering if the Treasurer would take the opportunity to check with the Minister as to when we might see the approval of those plans and give me an answer back as to whether or not that commitment of $10 million which was made is still there.
Treasurer.
The honourable member would ask the question directly of the Minister, who is usually in his place, and in fact was up until about 10 minutes ago. But since it does involve public funds, I certainly can undertake to track down the status of the situation and report to the honourable member.
New question. Member for Mississauga South.
Mr. Speaker, my question was of the Minister of Citizenship and Culture, but I see she isn't back in the House, so I'll ask the question to the Treasurer, since the Treasurer is the person that controls the purse strings for the province in any case. Does the Treasurer support the concept of the Ontario Arts Council being an independent arm's-length body that would distribute government grants to arts communities, groups?
Mr. Speaker, of course I do. I know what the honourable member is referring to. I heard the honourable Minister of Culture make the announcement of what was it, $1.8 million? A little more than that, I think. 2.5 extra dollars above and beyond the allocation for culture, which the honourable member knows is substantially greater than the revenues of Ontario and L'Ontario in this year. That the allocations this year have been greater than the year before, as the honourable member has been made aware of clearly and repeatedly, and I just wanted to be sure that she was aware of it. The role of the Arts Council is extremely important, but these were ancillary payments made under, I wouldn't say emergency circumstances, but circumstances involving the substantial debt of these major organizations. I was very glad that the Minister of Culture was able to make this announcement, and also that she had the resources to make the payment, and the money was made available from the generosity of the people of Ontario and through the treasury of the province.
Time for oral questions has expired.